Chris Brown is back in a Los Angeles courtroom, and this time it has nothing to do with music. He's facing a $90 million lawsuit from his own former housekeeper, who says one of his dogs nearly killed her on his property. And just this week, the entire trial collapsed before it even really started. Today we're breaking down everything that's happened, from the night of the attack back in 2020, all the way to the dramatic Mistrial that just dropped this week. Stick around, because there's a lot more to this story than a dog bite. Let's go back to where it all started. December 12th, 2020. Chris Brown is living at a property in Tarzana, in the Los Angeles area, and he's got security dogs on the premises, including a massive Caucasian shepherd named Hades. This is not a small breed. These dogs can weigh anywhere from 110 to 220 pounds. That's heavier than most grown men. Working at the house that day is a housekeeper named Maria Avila. According to her lawsuit, she was simply taking out the trash, doing her job, when Hades attacked her without warning. She says she never even saw it coming. In her own words from a later deposition, she said the dog hit her face, her hand, and bit into her foot, and that she didn't see it happen. She just felt something enormous come at her. The injuries, according to her legal filings, were horrific. She claims the dog ripped 3 to 4 inches of skin off her arm, tore into her face, and bit her legs. Photos referenced in later court filings reportedly show extensive damage to her face. Avila says she needed emergency surgery afterward, and that she's been left with permanent disfigurement, nerve damage, and even some loss of vision. This wasn't a scare. This was a woman who, by her own account, thought she might bleed to death in Chris Brown's driveway. Now here's where it gets even messier. Avila claims that after the attack, Brown came outside, stood over her while he was on his phone, and then left the scene while she was still lying there bleeding. That's her version. Brown's version, which we'll get into, paints a very different picture. Her sister, Patricia Avila, was also at the house that day, and she says she ran outside to find Maria covered in blood, screaming and crying for help. Patricia says witnessing that left her traumatized, and she filed her own lawsuit for emotional distress, which later got combined with Maria's case into one trial. Maria's husband is also a co-plaintiff, claiming what's legally called loss of consortium, basically that the harm done to his wife affected him too. So by the time this thing reaches trial, you've got Maria, her husband, and her sister Patricia, all going after Chris Brown and his company, Black Pyramid LLC, for a combined $90 million. So, what does Chris Brown say happened? In April of 2025, Brown sat for a deposition, and portions of it were later filed in court. And his account is almost the complete opposite of Avila's. Brown says he didn't hear any screaming. He says he didn't see any blood, at least not at first. He claims he only left the house because his manager told him to. At one point in that deposition, Brown reportedly said, quote, "I'm not bad," as he tried to explain his side of what happened that day. His legal team has gone even further, arguing that Avila essentially provoked the dog, and that she had been told not to go outside the house without permission, something Avila has directly disputed under oath. Brown's lawyers have also pushed back hard on the idea that he tried to cover anything up. After the attack, Hades was taken to another location and ultimately euthanized. Avila's side has suggested that looked like an attempt to destroy evidence. Brown's team calls that completely false, saying in court filings that getting rid of the dog was about removing what had become, in their words, a dangerous animal, not about hiding anything. Now, for years, this case crawled through the legal system. It was first filed back in 2021, and it took until 2026 to actually get in front of a jury. Along the way, there were some interesting side battles. At one point, Brown's legal team said he had relocated out of Los Angeles to Nevada and used that as a reason he couldn't sit for an in-person deposition right away. Avila's side wasn't happy about that, saying they'd been trying to schedule it for months and reached out to him something like 6 times without a real response. Eventually, that got sorted, and the deposition happened anyway. Then, right before trial, Brown's lawyers made a move that became a story of its own. They asked the judge to completely block any mention, during the trial, of Brown's 2009 felony assault on Rihanna. Brown's team argued that bringing that case up in a dog bite lawsuit would be irrelevant and seriously prejudicial, basically poisoning the jury against him for something that has nothing to do with a dog attack. Avila's side pushed back, saying the request was overly broad and that they might need to bring it up, not to smear him, but specifically to challenge his testimony if he tried to paint himself as a calm, non-threatening person on the stand. Their argument was if he opens that door by portraying himself a certain way, they should be allowed to walk through it. In the end, the judge sided with Brown on this point, ruling that the Rihanna case was unrelated to the dog mauling lawsuit and would not be allowed in. Even more interesting, during jury selection, several potential jurors said they were aware of Brown's history with Rihanna and felt they couldn't be impartial because of it. The judge dismissed those jurors from the pool entirely. So, the stage was set. Trial finally began this past week in Los Angeles, in front of Judge Huey P. Cotton. Chris Brown actually showed up in person. He was expected to be the very first witness, set to take the stand and give his account directly to the jury. And then, on the second day of proceedings, everything fell apart. The judge stopped the trial and revealed that one of the jurors had broken the most basic rule of jury duty. According to the judge, that juror had gone online and searched for information about the case, something jurors are explicitly told never to do, and then shared what they found with other members of the jury. In the judge's own words from the bench, he said, quote, "Unfortunately, one of the jurors has violated my admonitions against searching the internet for information, and not only that, but he also shared it, and as a consequence, I have to declare a mistrial." Just like that, the entire jury was dismissed. All that jury selection, all that legal wrangling over what could and couldn't be said gone because one juror couldn't resist Googling the case. The judge ordered the attorneys to stay in the courtroom so they could immediately start picking a brand new jury from a separate pool of people who had already been called in for jury duty. Chris Brown, for his part, didn't seem too rattled. Leaving the courthouse, when asked about the mistrial, he reportedly just said, "It happens." When reporters brought up the $90 million amount Avila is seeking, Brown called it, quote, "crazy." There was also a small personal wrinkle here. With the trial suddenly delayed, Brown reportedly asked the judge for some time to go visit his newborn son in Las Vegas. The judge wasn't having a long delay, though, and ordered him back in court within just a couple of days to keep the new jury selection process moving.
So, what happens now?
A new jury is being seated, and the trial is expected to restart very soon, with Brown still set to testify once it does. The ban on mentioning the Rihanna case should still apply going forward, since that ruling was made before the mistrial and wasn't really connected to the reason the trial fell apart. So when this restarts, expect a very similar setup, just with 12 different people in the jury box. There's also been a side dispute over money. Avila's lawyers have asked the judge to block any mention at trial of a payment that someone from Brown's team allegedly gave her for medical bills after the attack. Her side argues that payment isn't relevant to whether Brown is legally responsible for what happened and shouldn't be used to suggest the matter was already handled. It's worth remembering, too, that this isn't happening in a vacuum. Chris Brown has other legal issues going on at the same time, including a case out of London where he's faced charges connected to an alleged bottle attack on a music producer at a private club back in 2023. He's pleaded not guilty in that case. And on the career side, he's currently gearing up for a co-headlining tour with Usher, so he's trying to manage a major tour schedule while also walking in and out of courtrooms on 2 continents. So here's where things stand. A woman says she was nearly killed by a guard dog while doing her job and has the photos and medical history to back up a horrific injury. Chris Brown disputes how it happened and how much responsibility falls on him. A jury was finally about to hear both sides and then collapsed because of one person's curiosity online. Now they start over, with Brown expected to take the stand once the new jury is in place. What do you think actually happened in that driveway back in 2020? Do you think Brown bears responsibility here, or do you think Avila's side is overreaching with a $90 million number? Drop your take in the comments and make sure you're subscribed, because when this trial restarts, we will be right here breaking down every twist as it happens.